What's up, guys? This is Jay and Scott here with Revolution Radio. Just catching up on the events of last week and early this week as we come to you on a Wednesday. It is February the 3rd. Uh, Scott, how's life been treating you?
Well, I'm still COVID free, but I expect to touch a dirty toilet seat at any time and get
You're
COVID version 12 from South Africa or the Australian version, which is from crocodiles. But
you're COVID
other,
free, but you're packed full of AIDS.
yes, I've got super AIDS, and nobody knows, so I'm donating blood as much as I can,
Good.
and
Good. You gotta spread it around.
spreading the love. It's let's see, what is it? Kansas. It's we had a beautiful 59-degree day today, which will not repeat itself. Yeah, which is great for February.
I hate it, man. I hate it. I really do. Like, I
Oh yeah.
want some snow. Every other part of this country is like almost worried about snow days and everything else. And literally today, at some point, I had to turn on fans because I was getting too hot.
Oh yeah, and it definitely is nice. I'm ready for as much as I want. I'm ready to go outside again. Since the other forms of entertainment have gone to shit, it's really nice to know that my fishing gear is calling me, and I can stay 6 foot. I want to be more than 6 foot away from people fishing, and hopefully a lot of people choose to do that too, because it's, sometimes people don't realize how fun fishing is, and they need to take their kids out and do shit outside again.
I mean, I don't think anyone stopped. I don't, that's one thing. It's been, I don't know, pretty much the same now with where we're, COVID before, after. Hell, even during the height of the pandemic, which some could argue that we're still kind of in, people are still out doing crap. In fact, that's one of those things that annoys me more than anything is like driving and so many pedestrians. Today, literally, I was at a four-way stop. It was held up for almost, I want to say, 10 minutes because of a pedestrian who wasn't sure when to walk. Literally, this girl, she's probably 12 years old, whatever, feel bad, whatever. She was like standing in the middle of the road, like going back and forth, like, which way do I go? What do I do? It's like, oh, you stupid brat. Like,
Well,
I'm trying to turn
that
and
that
get
that
home.
that, that sounds like the special short bus dropped her off at the wrong intersection, actually. But most kids know how to cross an intersection. There are a lot of people walking, and as much as I love to just walk aimlessly.
Oh, and the bike riders? I hate the bike riders too.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bike. It's hanging upside down in my garage, and it's been in some kind of Chinese water torture for a decade because I could care less about it. But I mean, it's with the theaters that aren't going to be coming back anytime soon, and like I was scheduled to go to Dallas to see Faith No More, like in this last August, and that, of course, all that shit was canceled way early, like in May or so. And so we still won't see concerts. We still won't see, water parks or, a lot of, I don't know, some amusement, Disney's trying to, not that I would
Yeah, I
ever
mean,
go to Disney,
Disney's
but
been open, yeah. I mean,
movie
Six
theaters and
Flags,
places where you pack people in.
there's still enough of them that are. And again, I don't have a problem with them. I'm fine because it gets people off the damn streets. Like, I wish more people were like me and just didn't leave the house unless they had to. Because when you're driving around and you got to worry about almost hitting some moron on a bike who, for some reason, thinks he's like in the Tour de France, like, oh, I'm going to be the next Lance Armstrong. And then you have an idiot who doesn't know when to cross the road. Like, get the hell out. I've got places to be. And since I don't have a alcohol problem and I have a driver's license, I use a car. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's
what the
going to
hell?
produce this. The side effects of this are going to definitely resonate for a lot of people. You know, even if they just wanted an excuse why they drank, 8 bottles of vodka a day for 2 years or whatever. But honestly, I don't see a lot of this
I'm not talking about
changing
with that with
anytime soon.
COVID. I'm talking about that in general. I worked in factories for 10 years. About half of the people who worked there all rode bikes. I mean, it had nothing to do with COVID. It has everything to do
Would you
with,
live in? Did you live in China or something? Where did you?
uh, no, go work in a factory. You'll be
I know,
surprised
but
how
I'm like,
many,
are we talking about like you working at Foxconn somewhere or where?
well, the first one was Skyline. We made mobile homes. Yeah, I was an
Okay.
electrician, and yeah, most of the guys who worked there all showed up on their bikes, usually in dirty, stanky clothes, stinking of alcohol. Then I worked at Weyerhaeuser, which was a recycling plant. There again, a number of the dudes. Now that was a little bit different because we made good money there, and so a lot of the people that worked there were, they kept their crap together because you make good money. You don't want to lose that job.
There
Um,
probably wasn't a lot of turnaround by comparison to the motorhome manufacturing place too.
right, right, yeah. And I worked at Hair at one point, which is uh, we'll just say it's another manufacturing kind of thing. But yeah, most of them were all like riding to work on their bike. I'd be driving to work and I'd pass most of them on the road as they're pedaling, sweating out booze from the night before.
So apparently, the places where people can ride bikes in order to just be legal as they expel the alcohol in a hot, short breaths on the way to work.
I'm telling you, dude, I lived the blue collar life. I know factory, like, yeah, that's a ton of those people, and of course other people, but I think we see it more too. Like, if you live in a big city, you just pass these people on the street. They're everywhere.
Oh, I when I pass people in the grocery store and they've been boozing it up, you're just like, Jesus Christ! I mean, it's 10:30 in the morning at the sushi counter, and you smell like somebody just cracked a Miller Lite and some Avalanche and poured it over your body.
The worst. Like, my store now that I own is right by a liquor store, and if I happen to show up early, like, I don't know, to do some banking or something like that, I'll show up sometimes at like 9, sometimes at like 8:30, and there'll be like this huddled mass just all shaking in like the same unison, just needing like and I've had so many of them like yell at me or come up to me, hey, do you have the key for next door, man? Like, I just need some. I'm like, no, I don't. Shut up. Like, and look, my heart goes out to people who have problems. I get it, but also I've seen these people, the same people, for the last like 5 years, and it's like I know for sure that we have um, state and city sponsored rehab around here. Like, they don't want to quit though. It's not even
No,
about that.
no,
Like, they want to keep
I didn't
drinking.
want to quit smoking, but I found a substitute and went with that head on. But I didn't stop the nicotine. I wanted the damn nicotine.
Yeah, no, it's like me and masturbation. Like, I don't want to quit. I'm just gonna do it at every opportunity. I don't care if that's your grandma next to me on the bus or not. She's gonna get a little bit of J loving, and that's the way it is.
Grandma's knows about the birds and the bees. Just because it's just the birds or just the bees at the moment doesn't mean anything.
No, I think, I think she appreciates it. The old gal hasn't gotten attention in a while.
It's like, this is really just entertainment for you, Maud.
And it's like, ah, you remind me of my late husband. He used to have problems chubbing up too. Shut up.
Well, I am on a bus. It's one of those things, like a public restroom. You're just like, hey, everybody come get a look.
Stop
And I
stop
heard
looking
in
at it and
Europe,
look at me in the
all their
eyes
bathroom
again.
stalls are actually like completely closed. Like American bathrooms are apparently way more open than the rest of the world.
I don't know about that.
No, I watched a video on the other day, European comments on things that are different in Europe. Like you can see under the bathroom stall of a door, and they're like over a foot and a half, usually off the floor in America. In everywhere in
Oh,
Europe and the UK,
okay,
they
okay.
go they go all the way down basically only to about 2 or 3 inches. So I guess to prevent peepers or something. And they also have like big separations between the urinals. And most of the time, if there are separations between the urinals in America, they're just like, 6 inches or so of like wall just so
It's
the splatter doesn't go back and forth.
Yeah, it's more for I think our fat, so we don't rub up
Yeah.
against each other too much. But no, I mean Australia is pretty close to us. Um, in fact, do you know you heard the story of Trough Guy?
Trough guy. Nuh-uh.
So there's this. So they used to have this thing in Australia called a heathen fest, where like basically you just be the biggest heathen like in kink, basically I should say, and like you're people doing S&M and all sorts of crazy stuff, just orgies and whatever. Well, there's this dude, and they called him Trough Guy because he would just lay in the trough, and people would he want people to piss on him. And I was thinking like only people who go to concerts or go to like sporting events even know what a trough is. I mean, like,
Yeah, that's definitely a stadium thing.
and I was like, oh yeah, yeah. No, but poor Trough Guy did die, by the way. He caught
Well,
like
I tell
every
you
type of
another true
hepatitis.
story. When my dad was a junior high principal at one point, they had a problem with a kid who had been busted repeatedly licking the toilet bowls.
That's interesting. Like,
Yeah, he
what were
wasn't
you
bullied
going
into
for?
it. This wasn't like a getting a swirly. He was doing it on his own.
That's weird. I would wonder if he was doing other stuff.
Of course he was.
No, you know what
You're
I'm
willing to
saying?
get busted doing that.
No, I'm saying like I wonder if like he was, beating it off or something while he was doing it. Like,
That seems still safer than than licking it. It's
well, I'm
just like
saying
we're
while he's licking it. Like there has to have been something. Or maybe that's just it.
yeah.
Like that's probably why I don't get a
Once
lot of
again,
kinks.
you're trying to put your mind too deep into that bucket for you to really understand, because that's not a sanity bucket, my friend.
No, I know. I try to understand some of it. Like the whole like and I really don't I can't understand the kink thing. Like S&M for instance. Like it just seems or role playing, another one. It's like you have to do all of this work for what? Like what are you really getting out of it?
Well, I don't
I,
know. It's like you said, it's too much mental gymnastics to like, do you really have to try to believe? This to me, it's almost just like it's like religion. It really is. It's like praying. Speaking in tongues. You're trying to make reality bend to your imagination, and just to I don't know, get some kind of fulfillment out of it. And unfortunately, it may satiate your need for the bending of reality, but it's not real
well, and I would
in
I
the
would just
long
think
run.
like logically in that position, like I would be standing there in a latex suit with a unicorn horn on my head, just thinking like, what am I doing? Like I yeah, at some point just be like, well, like I have to break character, like I can't stay this like. I mean, and I do it all, even r- regular sex. Like I'll say some, like I don't know. I think one of the last times a comment I made was, "Oh, I gave your liver a facial." Yeah,
I don't even know where to classify that. It's just like you're being a comedian what
right.
you're doing.
I got to
Well,
do that
because
kind of
it
stuff.
it
Like,
does get a little silly after a while. It's kind of, you know, there's there's no, and I've never been one of those like crazy, like talkers myself. Like, okay, now turn around and call me Big Jimmy and and hoot like an owl. Woo-hoo! And so
Look,
it's like you're almost like I don't know. It just seems like it makes things a little bit silly.
it does, right? Like
Maybe
that's my whole thing. Like, how do you not just bust out laughing or be like, what are we doing? Like, what is even going on? Like, have you ever had a girl call you daddy? Like,
yeah.
actually do it.
I've had some ones that were ridiculously loud when it sounded like over the top loud.
Oh, like
Like, I
super
don't know if
fake.
you're getting
Yeah.
off, and that's good if you are, but you're so loud. I either think that you're doing it on purpose to be really loud, but you're bothering the neighbors at this point.
Right, right. Like, you're
It's like,
annoying me. Shut up.
yeah, yeah, no, you made it really weird. I'm all for the moans, baby, but I don't want people to think I'm beating you with a metal rod over here the whole time.
Go, go, go be like my ex who just sits there disappointed, looking angry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm even at this point. A dead fish is just fine with me. I'm down.
No,
I
but
just
like high school or not high school, college. I had a girl who would like she actually called me daddy, and it was just I'm like what? Like I couldn't. I had to comment. Like I could have just let it go and done it. This was just like a one night stand kind of situation, but no, I had to recognize that she said that, and of course, like you know, I had to make a comment, and I happened to then call her Grammy.
oh, yeah. Or even better, you could have just said, look. Or if it was me, I'd have been like, look, I'm from Texas. You can just call me cousin. It'll make me feel more comfortable.
No, I mean the thing is I was going for just a quick little one-off joke, and it ruined it. I mean, she left. She was like, "Oh, you are a pervert," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't mean it. I was kidding."
I'm I'm the pervert when you just called my daddy.
Like, I mean, it was one of the I don't know the few times, which has happened more than once, where I've had a woman just walk out. Like, I went for the joke, and I always stand by going for the joke. At the end of the
Yeah,
day,
you're
at
like,
least
well, if
I'm
we're doing
happy.
water sports, I'm getting my jet ski.
Just show up with a snorkel and
I
flip
know this guy,
flops.
Trough guy. You know him? I invited him over.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Anyway, man, so what do you think about this whole GameStop situation?
Well, I know a lot of people paying attention, and you should be paying attention to this because this is where literally the people stood up, no matter what you've heard. If you're listening to mainstream media for this, stop. They are all liars, including the government representatives, including the everyone. And
Well,
I've
I
heard a
wouldn't say
couple
you're
different. Go
overgeneralizing
ahead.
when you say everyone, but yeah.
Well, I mean, for the most part, I mean, just about every mainstream media news has tried to demonize and as these investors. And if you don't know Reddit, it's this subreddit that's Wall Street Bets. They said, hey, these hedge funds that bet on, and in other words, they undervalue a stock. They say this is garbage, and we're so sure that it's garbage, we're going to bet shares and stock prices on it to fail. And so their money is tied in betting that the stock will fail, which in turn it makes the stock dump. So they're basically intentionally crashing some values of some companies, and they make money on the failure. Well, the guys at Wall Street Bets we're talking over 1.5 million people that were at least active on the site at that time said, hey, we think GameStop is undervalued. We know that these assholes are doing this to GameStop. Let's buy some GameStop stock. And we'll, at the same time, we can try to make some money, screw these guys over. By the way, everything is completely legal, what they did. They're literally playing the opposite game that the hedge fund short sellers, is what they call them, they're doing. And so they they got together as a huge community, and small purchases, large purchases in amount of stocks, but 1 million people got together. I don't know the exact numbers of how many individual stock buyers there were, but a shit ton of people bought GameStop stock. which sent it skyrocketing. And in turn, they made a bunch of money. And the people who are betting on companies to fail, trying to ruin people's, investments and just make money betting that they'll lose, lost billions of dollars. And in the process, we exposed as we as the people, because that's all these people were just a red subreddit that were just investors. They exposed the corruption, and the system is rigged. All of the selling, and I say all of them, it was all the big ones that are being used. Robinhood and the others, like a day trader kind of buy stocks over the internet kind of thing, which is pretty much all they do anymore. They shut down the buying of GameStop, or the selling. I'm sorry. It was buying. You
Buying,
could
yeah.
only sell, and you could only sell tiny increments. So, and then a couple of days later, on a similar rally on GameStop, the stock exchange shut it off, which caused the stock to plummet in price for a while until they opened it back up and then people were buying again. But the point of it is, not only did the companies who buy and that you pay, a small percentage to purchase stocks, they shut it down to protect these fucking Wall Street pieces of shit. And then our government shut it down to protect them once again, and then try to demonize and vilify all of those people who are just you and me and everybody to purchase stocks. As there were comparisons of us to terrorists, to insurrectionists. They tried to, say they're a bunch of Trumpers. They've said everything they possibly can. They called us rabble. They called us
Russian.
trash. And yeah, the Russians, they said, oh, these are Russians. I mean, every fucking thing that you can imagine that they would call you, me, mom, pop, and other people who were just trying to play the same game as they do every day. They tried to make us as the monsters, or literally terrorists. And it's a lie. And we have now exposed the system, found not a loophole, but just played their game, and they are panicking. And so, fucking, if you buy those stocks, buy some if you can afford it. I'm not an illegal person. I'm not a stockbroker. I'm not giving you advice. But the point is, by doing that and holding on to that stock, whether it goes up or down, will force these assholes to get the money from their trillionaire hands and put it back in the people's hands. It is fantastic, but it is a battle that has just started.
Yeah, no, it gets into some some convoluted things as well, like the way that this essentially works, from what I understand. Just to go back on the process of how they short sell, is that they borrow the stock, right, and then they sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And what their goal is they do have to sell that stock, or to purchase that stock back or give it back. And now when they give it back, if it's worth less than when they borrowed it, then they actually get a refund on that they, so like if they bought a $10 stock and then they sell it, well, when they return the stock and it's only worth $8, then they get $2 back. That's how
Right.
convoluted this whole thing is, by the way.
And so it's when in a sense it's almost like insurance fraud, and
Essentially,
I say that
yes.
because it's like purchasing insurance, but then colluding with the insurance company to make sure that when you have a wreck, it can never be your fault. It's always the other guy's fault. The other guy being the company itself, and so you get paid regardless of how the wreck happened, and you were betting that the wreck would happen. I mean, it's messed up. So it
Um,
was flipped on.
the thing I will say though too is, like, just to cover some of the things that you were saying. One, I think without a doubt, and I've felt this way for a long time, hedge funds, speculation market in general adds nothing to our GDP and should not exist. It takes more from it
Yeah,
than
it
it
could
does
go
to help.
away tomorrow, and nobody would be the worse for it.
No. And then you look at the legality. I don't know. It is actually kind of a gray area of if what we did and are doing is legal, I don't know. I actually would tend to say it's probably not legal. But
No, it is
the
it
fact
is
that
legal. The problem
hold
is
on,
no one has done this before
it's
to
not
reverse
it's
the
not
thing that
because
to bet against these short sellers is what you're doing.
no, it's probably actually not legal because there is an actual um, there's an attempt to falsely inflate the market and falsely conflate numbers, and it's a um, it's a how do I put it? Essentially, there's a lot of people coming together to falsely do that with communication saying this is what we're trying to do. Technically, by all rules, that is illegal. The thing is, though, and I think the most important part of it, though, is that they do that same thing every day. And I think that's,
Right.
where you have some people who I back actually in the government who come out and have said, okay, if you want to look into regulations or you want to look into even potentially charges against the Reddit users, well, first, we want to propose bills that look into like the Bloomberg terminals. The Bloomberg terminals is where they discuss most of what happens between hedge funds and the
Right.
speculation market. And there you can actually see where they're going to make moves, what they're talking about, and a good
It's
example
where
of
they
it.
rig the market, and it might as well be all the way not just the Bloomberg terminals, but all the way up to the Bilderberg Group and what they're doing and deciding on world commodities and other things to basically say, well, we're gonna down value this stock for this year. We're gonna stockpile. It doesn't matter if people have to pay more for this and that, and then next year we'll make a lot of money when we reveal that we've hit a new, mother lode of diamonds here and there, like De Beers or something.
Well, you
But
can
but I mean,
you don't
I
have to
know what
go
you're
that
saying as
crazy.
far as the legality.
You've got
They've
even
tried to put it into the market stability, like it's against the law to electronically disturb and they've also called these people hackers, to electronically disturb the stability of the market. But if that's illegal, and if they're going to compare these Redditors buying something that they consider to be undervalued, it's no different than what the short sellers do. You can't have both. And if they start going after Redditors for that, there's going to be some shit go down because this is exactly what the other guys do. They're just betting in the opposite direction.
no, and that's what I'm saying though, is yeah, and I'm actually in favor of them going after and honestly, I'm in favor of getting rid of speculation markets altogether. Um, but it's no different than like what Bill Ackman did. He went on, I think it was MSNBC, early on in the pandemic, and he said that there is a wave of turmoil coming at the hotels, and especially the Hilton hotels. And he essentially he said this is like the apocalypse for hotels. People are not going to be able to travel. They're not going to be able to vacation. COVID is going to ruin it. That day, as he was saying how horrible the stock is for hotels and not to buy into it, he bought millions of dollars into it. It's the same thing.
Right.
You're falsely inflating or falsely advising people to do something so that you turn around and do it. And if that's they've been doing this for years. Jim Cramer, the Mad Money guy, perfect example. There's a video of him from 2008, I think, 2010. You can look it up. You can find it. He's literally saying, yeah, if you really want to buy into some, and this was a private video, by the way. He's saying, yeah, if you want to really play the market, you gotta, you gotta misadvise large groups of people. Um, you know, the SEC will, you know, if they knew what you were doing, they would come after you, but they don't know what they're doing. Like it's Jim,
Oh no,
and
of
he
course not.
still has a job doing this. He's still on all those. Um, all of that is scum. We need to get rid of. The only thing that I hate to say, and I'm not going to make a lot of friends, but understand that I'm with you. I own AMC stock. I own GameStop. Like I'm with you in that form. But the thing is if we're gonna unite against Wall Street, we need to do it the same way they do it. Meaning we can't continue to play this game because we're not gonna win. They're
Right.
always
It's
going
because it's rigged. They've shown that
they're
they'll
always
shut down the markets to
even if
do
they
it, to
don't
stop people.
even if they don't, they'll make sure we go broke. And they're
Right.
always going to have backing, always.
And
I
we've already seen a false flag operation try to get into that Reddit thread, and that's also been on mainstream media. There's a rally on silver. It's going up. That's a lie. Trying to get people to buy silver because they were going to try to do that to reverse dump on people. It was literally a lie.
Yeah,
And the Reddit thread was like, "Don't buy the silver. This is bullshit. We know it's bullshit. They're trying to steal money back."
or they'll keep doing the same thing. I mean, they literally like Robinhood, who had a liquidity problem. They literally just got refunded by another trillionaire. It's no big deal, or
Yeah,
I should say, by two billionaires. But it doesn't matter. They're always going to be able to. The way that I think the only way that we actually beat them at their own game is it's not sexy, it's not, revolutionary like people want, but we really need to get behind politicians who are all about regulating the shit out of Wall Street. We got to
yeah.
get behind
That's one
politicians who
place.
don't
That's
take
one
any
reg
money.
market that needs regulation for sure. And not only that, but we need to have regulation on internet. We need to have a standard. It needs to be deemed just the same as water and electricity. It needs to have the same accessibility. It's you can do nothing in this world without it. So it
No,
needs
I
to be a
agree.
utility
Yes,
and not a raping tool as it is across a lot of the United States.
I completely agree. But again, I have to say the only way we're going to get anything done is by continuing to support politicians that don't take money from any of those people. And if you start researching into politicians like you should, you're gonna find out there's not a lot of them that don't. There's really
Yeah.
not. Like I could give you a handful, but that's about it. Like, uh, that was one of those things like with Trump, for instance, like where the first inkling I was like, oh, this dude isn't legit is when I found out how much money he was getting from Adelson. I'm like, oh, all right, never mind. He's a Wall Street scumbag too. Never mind. It's, like it it's very difficult to find, but we got to find these people. We got to support them. Take that. There's a lot of people
I don't know
doing
if we can
great
find them more
stuff.
than just putting them in place. I mean, we've bred. I mean, you're literally asking for politicians to not be greedy in their lives, and I think it would be. I can't even imagine in the last 50 to almost 100 years finding politicians who wouldn't be swayed by cash. It's kind of like and to me, if you can't buy the politician, well, then you can buy an assassin or you can buy a family member, or you know what I mean? It's like there's really no end to where that money. It's not just doesn't have to be just into from a lobbyist to a politician's hands. They will find ways to make you do and vote certain way. There's just too much money involved.
Yeah, I mean maybe I don't know. Some of it's us too. That's the other thing is who controls us. Um, like I disagree with a lot of the like over the top. One example would be someone like Bernie Sanders, who if Bernie got into the power that he almost did, and it almost happened, then there would be major changes, and money would be upended as far as like Wall Street's concerned. The wealth tax would be
I think
gigantic,
Bernie was too.
but
I
no
would
one
think
tried
I
to.
thought that at the beginning, but after him seeing getting bullied and how he just accepted, I've seen him be bullied off stage by a couple girls. I've seen him, like completely bend to the Democratic National Convention, openly screwing him over, and he just continued to stump for the Democrats. He was way too weak. Maybe his ideals would have been there, but I think he would have caved. If he was going to cave for that shit and not stand up for himself, why would he stand up for anything else?
Well, if he was the president, he would have more power. Like, if you ask me, like there again, like in like just last year, when it looked like hey, Bernie actually might be the president. Um, he had that the issue wasn't Bernie Sanders so much as it was the MSNBC, CNN, and people who were um, they're being manipulated essentially to
Yeah, they
say,
were
oh,
openly colluding against him, Hillary Clinton,
well, no, no,
and
I'm not even talking about like that. And you're going back to 2016. I'm talking about last year. Like people like uh, Elizabeth Warren and like that woke crowd, like women essentially like a lot of Democrat women didn't want Bernie Sanders because they
shattering the glass ceiling.
yes, they wanted a woman, and then the other people, the older Democrats were real concerned about how he would handle it. But by the time he started stumping for the Democrats, I actually get why he did it, and it was because there was no path to victory at that point. It was over. Uh,
Well, because he didn't fight once. I mean, it was very obvious when the DNC did that to him. I mean, it didn't take a long time to expose that, and he had opportunities to stand up to that and to call out and to challenge people and to challenge
wait,
Hillary and to
what do you?
challenge some of these other
Are
people in
you
the
still
DNC,
going
and
back
he
to like
didn't do it.
2016? Is that what you're talking about?
Huh?
Are you still going back to 2016? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm talking about last year because he really didn't stump for them in 2016. I mean, he did a little bit, but again, I think like that personally also broke him.
No, I know he didn't do it in 2016. I'm saying when he had the chance to be nominated as the candidate, he got screwed over in 2016. And at that time, I was saying if he's going to be this powerful person as a president, he also has to stand up to corruption when it's right in front of him, aimed at him. And he didn't do it. And then later, of course, continues to stunt for the Democratic Party. It's almost like he got betrayed by these people in every way and shape and form. Not by the people, he had a lot of support, but when it came to the people who were controlling the system, he gave up.
Yeah, I disagree, and I mean it because of this. Like, he did talk about what happened with the DNC. I mean, you remember this last election or primary? He wanted his own people to be able to look at what the DNC was doing. In
Oh,
fact,
I doubt
he
and don't doubt that at
he
all.
brought lawyers in. But at that point in 2006, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna trump it and be like, "I didn't lose. It's fake election." Like, you're not. It's over. Like, there's nothing. You can't get it overturned. It's too late.
I,
And
I, I,
the best you're gonna
it
do,
was too late after a month or two, and that he didn't do anything. But I mean, we're talking WikiLeaks here exposes that real fast. And the
the
people,
best you're gonna do though.
there were like four lawyers that were suing the DNC, and they were all stationed in Florida that all ended up dead in extremely weird. And I'm not talking conspiracy; they really did like supposedly get mugged and killed. Like one guy was on the beach that they didn't take his wallet or anything. He was shot and killed like and from behind. Like there were some really fishy and all these people, they were suing Hillary Clinton and the DNC, and then lawyers ended up dead. And I think maybe they scared him. I think he realized he wasn't playing in the same ballpark as the Clintons.
There again, I disagree. And you know, to go further on it, you know, at that point too, there's two things. Number one, as much as it shouldn't be this way, and I'm highly against it, the only reason why he lost to Hillary was because the representatives voted for Hillary, even though their people voted for Bernie. But the thing is that's actually legal. That's why we
Sure,
shouldn't
sure.
have this system. Like, it was totally up against Bernie. But what are you really going to sue them for? Because what they did was legal. And that's the problem. Like that kind of collusion. And when you look at the DNC, even the DNC said it themselves, like, we're not under your regulation. We're a private company. And they are.
Sure.
So you're not going to be
And
able to do
how
any of that.
and
And
how
so
do,
what
and
I'm
a
saying,
private
hold
company
on, can I?
sets
I'm not done.
the person who's going to be the Democratic national candidate. That bothers me as well. Even if it's the RNC, it's like, how does a private organization, uh, that's probably tax free with donations, get to mandate who they think is going to be, the candidate.
Right. But my point is at that point, when you're looking at it from a legal aspect, there's no path to victory. There again, what do? Do you throw your feet on the ground and throw a tantrum? And
I would at least start with that. Damn it.
and look and become the nation's biggest joke, or do you get back in there and you try to actually get something done? And that's exactly what he did. Um, you know, and I think too, Trump winning. I think Bernie blamed it on himself because he really felt like he split the Democrat Party, and he may have he maybe he did, but I think he took that to heart. Like I think that's more of why he started,
Well,
doing what they
he
said.
should have blamed the other side for splitting the party,
He
if
should
you
have.
ask me.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But there again, now he's actually in a place where he can actually make things happen. And I mean,
Well, we'll see. I mean,
the
I understand that it would be better if a lot of this speculative market buying didn't happen, and the regulation, some kind of regulations put in place to even remove the speculative market buying. I don't know if that would just be for the New York Stock Exchange in general, if that would affect Japan's stock exchange, or
I'm sure it
exactly.
would. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, I would hope it would have to be like this. We're talking an international decision, and wow, that's a lot of money to be going up against.
well, I'm sure even if they ended the speculation market here, it would affect other countries and other markets. It'd have to. Like, maybe. I don't know. That's the other thing. You know, let's put a pin in Bernie Sanders real quick. Go back to this real quick. But, um, I think that's the other interesting thing about this whole situation with the GameStop and the hedge funds and the short sellers is the fact that when it's all said and done and you kind of rip away the layers of what this whole thing is, you start to understand that it is just a giant, game of come on the cracker. Meaning, hey, we all want to put money into this stock. We're going to make it look like it's big, so we get a bunch of money from it. Then we're going to trade back and forth. We're going to do different leveraging possibilities, and we're going to speculate on this that it'll go down. We'll borrow against that, then we'll trade against this. But at the end of the day, it's all worth nothing. Like, I think that's the interesting thing because if we can all get together and just buy a bunch of stock into something, it's proof that this is all just some game that you can just, like I said, like come on a cracker, like throw it
Absolutely,
around, and
it is just a bullshit game, and I think that's what's been exposed here is that it's a game that they have been playing against us, and you know, and it's stealing wealth is what it's doing. It's stealing wealth from people. It's stealing wealth from other investors. They collude to do it, and the system is rigged to protect just them. That's what's been exposed, regardless of whether we want to call interrupting market stability by playing the same game. You can't demonize one group without calling out the other
oh
group.
yeah, no, and I
So
think it's ridiculous if you try to play that game of, well, they're destabilizing the market. Yeah, what do you call the '08, you know, housing bubble? What do you call them falsely inflating I mean, every administration has done it. Trump with
what do
banking,
you call the Wall Street bailout of the
Obama.
auto
Yes,
system? What do you
yeah,
call the bailout of all these solar companies and stuff, like of billions of dollars that we've invested in Chinese solar companies that just disappeared after a year of, it's just like that money was never going to make solar energy. It
never.
was there to just put money in somebody's pocket.
Foxconn. I mean, you can just start naming names of companies who really don't do shit, but they exist in the market to make money for other people. And like, yeah, that's where you also get into, what I was talking about with the politicians. You start looking at people like Janet Yellen. She is the new Treasury Secretary. She received $700,000 to do a speech, one speech, about 2 years ago from Goldman Sachs. You gonna tell me she's gonna come in here and she's gonna regulate the crap out of this? That she's going to pump the brakes on the speculative markets and the insider trading and falsely inflating markets and shorting stuff? No, because she almost got $1 million from them for speaking. Like that's Ted Cruz, another one who he was one of the first to be like, oh, I agree with AOC. Yeah, his wife is a hedge fund manager. You think he's gonna really
Yeah.
do anything? Like, come on.
Well, and Feinstein and Pelosi bought a whole bunch of stock for from some company that the next day they announced, that they
Tesla.
would
It was
be.
Tesla.
You remember what company that was? I can look it up.
Can you not hear
Uh,
me?
no, I didn't hear you.
Oh, it's Tesla.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was Tesla. Well, what was the law or whatever that went into effect? Was it was just like a clean energy thing, right? And they just
Yeah, because they knew Joe Biden's plan, of course.
right, and they right before he announced it and signed it, they purchased. I mean, which
And
basically
by the way,
tantamount to insider trading.
we're not talking about like a couple $100 here. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars they bought
Oh
in
yeah,
Tesla stock. I mean, the Tesla stock is $878 right now. Like prior to this big dump, I think it was around six something, 6 to 7 something. And once they get that high, it's really hard to get them to move. But you can look at it, and maybe it had a dip when I looked at it. I don't know. But the point is it's now 878, and Nancy Pelosi purchased millions of dollars in Tesla stock because she knew what Joe Biden was going to do. Thinking about it takes us back to COVID, and you had and I got it. It kills me. I don't remember the two
the
Republicans.
multiple vaccine companies, Pfizer and the rest of them
No,
that
no, I'm
that all
talking
these
about
politicians invested in before.
No, I'm talking about the two Republicans and the Democrat who bought in on technology like Zoom right before they announced the shutdown.
Oh right,
Loeffler
right.
and the only one I can remember is Loeffler. Honestly, I don't remember the other two's names.
Yeah, I know what three that were kind of accused of. They're all doing it, and it's just bullshit. It's rigged against us. They're doing it on purpose, and it's not even that hidden,
No,
and we
right
let it
out there.
happen.
And to go, I think this speaks volumes as well. Ro Khanna, he came out and he said that he's trying to get support to pass a bill that bans anyone who basically works in DC as a representative, a senator, a congressman, any form, you cannot trade stocks. That would be huge. But he's going to get like five signatures. No one's going to agree to that.
Right.
And, but there again, if you want to change things, look for people like Rokana. Support that guy. Yeah, that's the only way we win because, and I know it's a super, super long game. We let this country get screwed up bad, and we're really, really deep in the woods, but at least we now have a politician who's saying, hey, we shouldn't be able to buy and sell stocks. 10 years ago, that wouldn't even
Yeah,
be
I
a
mean,
thought.
it's almost like if you want to be a protector and a person of the people, and you want to do things for people, then you have to prove it by almost losing some of your financial rights. In other words, you can't be in the same system that you can manipulate while the rest, you know what I mean? It's almost
Oh,
like I
yeah,
would
yeah.
it would make those people have to play fair if they're really interested in doing things for the people.
No, exactly. I mean, well, look, we were just talking about Janet Yellen making almost $1 million for one speech. Barack Obama, I mean, I don't know how much $250,000 he was charging per speech, and he did a whole
Yeah,
tour
Hillary
of all
Clinton was
these.
making over 400,000 or 500,000.
Yeah. Um, and then you go look at like AOC, for instance, or Ro Khanna or whatever. And look at how much they're worth. I mean, they make peanuts compared to that. I mean, I think Ro Khanna, who's been a politician for a very, very long time. I shouldn't say very, very long time, but he's been there for a while. Um, he's not even close to $1 million yet. Like not even close. again, those are the politicians I think we have to go at. We have to follow, support, find more people like that. And then when they screw up and they pull an Elizabeth Warren and start saying, "Oh, I'm going to stand on beyond for the side of the SEC, and we should regulate the redditors," and we get rid of them. You say you're dead to me. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much support I had for you. You're dead. Ted Cruz, you know, um, Donald Trump, you're dead to me. That's what we should be doing. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Probably not. People, we jump from things so quickly, and it's hard to stay principled because it's hard to remind yourself to stay principled about things when the world is constantly on fire.
Yeah, you need like a permanent like a hit list of
like
people that you're like,
or,
nope, nope,
or,
not buying them breakfast.
or
Nope, nope.
a checklist of priorities that you have to keep clear. Like, oh wait, nope, I can't be for this person. I believe in clean water, whatever. But along
Yeah,
the
I
and
can't,
now,
I can't, yeah, I can't buy, this product because, their company invests in, killing dolphin babies and making it into soup or, something
right?
like that. It's like, that's a big list.
No, exactly. But on that, and now picking the pin out of Bernie Sanders, um, we don't have as much as what we used to talk about with stimulus, but I think there is a decent enough conversation here. Um, it looks like that the House has decided that they are going to pass the stimulus using reconciliation. And there again, this is my point about Bernie playing the game to get to some place that actually is going to make a huge difference because he is the chairman of the budget committee. Like, and you know what? I don't say this very often, but kudos to Biden for putting him in that position. And honestly, kudos to Biden for saying that he wasn't going to work with the other side to get a weaker package because 78% of the country thinks that we should pass this $1.9 trillion package, and we should. We shouldn't be messing around with that 600 million or 600 billion dollar package. It's not going to do anything.
Well, yeah, and he shouldn't work with the other side because when Trump wanted a 2K one, they wouldn't work with him.
Yeah, no, and I mean they're at a place where and again, you know, it wasn't just that. I think that was a part of the problem. They were playing politics, of course. They always do. But they weren't really looking into what anything outside of the checks. It was just the checks. This definitely goes a lot deeper. There's a lot more and stuff going on. That's the important thing. I know there's a lot of people on left wing Twitter, and I'm with them, that they're disgusted by the stimulus package because Joe Biden said $2,000 checks and now it's 1,400 because we got to count in that $600. I think it's stupid that he caved in on that. I think it's really dumb. Moving forward, people are going to say, no, 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 wait. You said if we win Georgia, it's $2,000 checks. You didn't say $1,400 plus the one that the last administration signed in. It's a false promise, but at least I would give him this credit. At least he's working to get this done. Because up until yesterday, I had doubts that he would even get this done. I really thought, Joe Biden's going to fuck it up again. He had multiple meetings with these neocon Republicans about this incredibly marginalized stimulus plan. Like I said, 600 billion, and really all it did was extend unemployment by $100. And he had, like I said, like multiple long meetings with these people over this stupid proposal. Meanwhile, not listening to any of the progressives in the party who wanted to actually do more than his stimulus package. And I really thought, yep, okay, as to quote Barack Obama, don't underestimate how bad Joe can fuck up because that's what he's going to do. But again, to come back to it, he didn't. And he said, no, no, we're doing our plan. We're going to use Bernie Sanders in the budget reconciliation. And it's fine, by the way. The people who are going to freak out about it, which there's not going to be a lot, to be honest. I've already seen Fox News trying to turn this one. Understand that Donald Trump, in his first 3 months in office, he also did budget reconciliation, and he did it to the tune of $2.2 trillion for tax cuts to those same Wall Street scumbags. So your 2.2 trillion either went to give the the hedge funds guys tax cuts, or we do in 1.9 to get a goddamn check and maybe get some firefighters and some police officers paid. I don't know, like you know,
Well, if you ask me, really a lot. Even though I agree that it's a lot of that money from the 2.2 or whatever trillion definitely benefited those people. Some of those tax cuts is almost in essence, it all comes out of that same giant pot. You know what I mean? It's like if it wasn't tax cuts, then it could have been a stimulus back then. It would have still, you know, there's still a lot of this 1.9 trillion that I disagree with where it's going. And I'm not talking about just the stimulus money and the unemployment and housing and stuff like that. There's some large chunks of it that could go to, say, homeless people, or could go to doing a lot of good. And there's in other words, there's still money that's going to benefit rich
I'm sure.
people.
Oh, of
But
course, always, always. And you know what, though, to be fair, like the stimulus check itself, I think everyone should get it. I do. Like,
yeah,
because
you mean
usually,
people who make over that? What was it? It's 120,000, or is it? What's that limit?
it's 150, if I remember right. It's either
150.
150 or 170. I'm not wrong. But yeah, no, because you can just on the back end, you can tax them for it. Like, if they made too much for it, then you could actually just tax it out of them. Just fine. That's actually a Republican plan to give everyone money and then tax them at the problem is, though, is the Republican plan was to give everybody money and then tax everyone on that same money, which is ridiculous. You know,
Yeah, because the point of a stimulus is that you and me and average Joe and Jolene, we're going to spend that money. It's going to go right back into the economy, where people over that made over a certain amount, it goes in the bank and they sit on it, and so it doesn't circulate.
right, right. No, and I agree with you. I think there's definitely got to be some stuff. One thing I agree with, and then I also kind of disagree with. I'm torn on it. Personally, I disagree with it. Strategically and ideologically, I agree with it. But is the tax cut, the tax credit? Um, I think that under Joe Biden's stimulus package, the child tax credit is going to go to like $3,500 per child. And I don't know, like, I know people, man. I know real people who basically they get a big chunk of money every year from the government, and that's what they live off of all year. And I mean, we're talking 15, $20,000 in tax money. And it's like what they did was had kids and didn't really do anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, uh, one specific person that we actually both know. He has 6 kids. He doesn't have a job. His wife has a job. Um, it's funny. He actually lives with his grandma and like someone else. So there's like 3 or 4 families in this one house. And the funny thing is he's white. Um, but yeah, I mean, they get 15, $20,000 as is. That's what they got last year in
Oh, you don't
taxes.
have to convince me. There's a ton of whitey on welfare too. That's not a minority,
No,
majority.
and it's not even, well, here's my thing, I guess, is like this is the same guy who will say, well, I think a UBI is a bad idea. Like, he's a complete Republican.
Yeah, hypocrite.
Yeah, and it's like, well, you're but you're doing the same thing. I don't know. And like, from your perspective, which I've been through most of my life, in a way I'm kind of like, if you need 30 or you need $3,500 for your kid, maybe you shouldn't have had a kid. Like, I really do have that, like, personally deep in me where I'm like, eh, you get by
Well,
with it.
no, there is a certain point as an adult when you have children. It's not so much about just being angry about your irresponsibility, but knowing that that child won't receive, the good the simple things that make childhood okay because you were irresponsible.
No, I get you on that aspect too. Like I do. Like, and again, I actually agree with it ideologically and whatever. It's just me personally, and hell, even me personally, I'm conflicted because, I think I paid um just under 10 grand in taxes last year. Like knowing that I'm gonna get $7,000 in a tax credit, hell yeah. Like, so like I just think part of me is like that's a lot of money for some people to like continue not to work for. It sounds awful. I know. And ultimately, let me say this real quick before I put my foot in my mouth more. If it was a UBI, I would be fine with it. I just don't think that I don't think that you should get a tax credit for having kids when you personally, like you, Scott, will not get that same tax credit for being responsible and not having a kid.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. Like, you should get a tax credit too. Hey, Scott, you get a hey, your sperm didn't make it to the goal yet. Tax credit. Here you go.
Oh, it's made it to the goal, but luckily for me,
The
the
goal was
goal
the
was the end of the
eyeball
prophylactic or the pill.
or her chin.
Yeah, or the wall, whatever.
Right? Yeah. No, I mean, yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
and I agree. I think I'm in total agreement. Like it would be different with the UBI, and because everybody would get it, and those people who are going to be irresponsible, regardless, would at least have some living money, or at least no fucking excuse not to have feed their children. Whereas the rest of us would get it even if we were working, and it could just benefit us in other ways. We could invest with it. We could buy those things that we need on top of just basic survival. But when that, and that comes out with I think, of course, college education is too expensive, but also college education is not what it used to be. A college degree, uh, even though I have one, it's really worthless. I mean, even though
No,
mine's quite a
otherwise,
bit older,
yeah.
college is done nothing but degrade in quality and in importance for the workplace and for generally um, for the last 50 years.
I mean, you
So
have to
when
have
you charge, well, I'm
just
just saying when you charge people, and like I paid off my student loans. Now they weren't giant, but I also worked full time through college and only had to pay for, I paid for room and board and blah blah and living costs. My parents paid for my tuition and books, and that was also a stipulation where if I fuck up even 1 year, if I drop out, they're done. So I didn't have like a second round, so I didn't dig myself a giant financial hole,
yeah, you
but I
got
paid it
nothing.
back.
I don't want to hear about you. They paid tuition and books. That was
Yeah,
my col
tuition.
that was my college debt was tuition and books. Like,
Well, I mean, but I worked full time, but I still had to take out subsidy loans because it didn't cover all of my living expenses. You know what I mean? You can't work a 40 hour. I actually did for a few years, so I know you can. I went to junior college, and that was cheap, and I was working 40 hours a week too. And then when I went and finished at a 4 year university, which takes about 3 more years because you lose some credits, then I was working part time, and you still need money for like other things. So I mean, I took out probably at least about 10 grand, and it was at a shitty percentage and whatever else, but I paid it off. And then I know some people, I have family members that both of them have their PhDs in social, not sociology, but was it sociology? People who are social workers, is that what they get a?
no, no.
Yeah, okay. They have their whatever their PhD in
Are you
something. They have
sure?
their doctorate.
Are you
Although
sure
my
you got a
cousin wrote
degree?
her entire. Say what?
Oh, I was just messing with you. I said, "Are you sure you got a degree?"
Yeah, well, I don't have a degree in sociology. I'm just trying to remember what social work, like the doctorate version of people who are social workers. Like,
I
for
don't
instance,
know.
you can't get a doctorate in art.
I don't think you.
You really?
I don't honestly think you would even. for one, you don't need it, but for a social
Well,
worker,
you need it if you want to be a professor, because that's the only place that just like in art, the only place you can have a PhD is in art history. You can
right.
have a master's in art, but you can't have in fine art or any kind of art. But the only PhD that exists is art history. What are you going to do with art history? You're going to teach, or you're going to be a curator of a museum,
You're
which is
tied.
what a lot of even physicists ends up being like. Neil deGrasse Tyson is basically a guy who runs the Museum of the Cosmo or whatever. He's not an active
It's just
math
yeah.
cruncher.
I mean,
But
Smithsonian. He
but
one of them.
my point is that they both of that
One of
couple
them.
together, my cousins, one of them he's Hawaiian native and she's white.
Goddamn
They have
Hawaiians.
yeah, fucking Hawaiians. I know they have probably, and I'm not inflating numbers. They probably owe about $300,000 in student loans. I shit you not, because they have worked and been students the whole time, which delays the loan,
Right,
and they've
right.
also worked for the university, which also they get some bigger loan benefits there. She was denied tenure and fired, which that was awesome because she's a fucking vampire and she deserved it. She blew almost $1 million of one of her grandmother's money with my grandmother.
Okay, but
She basically stole it from my grandmother
personal.
and has nothing to show for it except piles of mountains of expensive clothes that she
Okay,
won't even wash herself. That she pays for a maid every once in a while to
we
come.
are
They had clothes stacked to them. They're disgusting people. But my point
we're
is,
running
I
low
don't
on
want those
time.
people to get bailed out of their student loans.
Okay,
These people,
hold
she
up,
is a leech on the system.
hold up. Let me. Number one, this is a personal thing. This isn't, like
Oh, you're damn right.
you're being very passionate because you know this person, you don't like her. Here, you want me to drop the other thing? Hold up. They've already been excused. Just because it shows that they still owe them, every payment they didn't make or every payment that was subsidized for them because they worked for the university or
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
the interest basically was
It,
held over and they
yeah,
didn't have to pay. Right,
it
but
all
it's
has
catching up with them now.
hold up. No, 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 no. The actual principal has already been written off. That's the thing. Like, I actually even I talked to someone at FAFSA because I still owe on my student loan. I didn't know I did, by the way. I got this letter. It was like, "Hey, you still owe like $1,500. You gonna pay that?"
No, it
And I
said,
was,
"Hey asshole, remember us?"
yeah, like, what the fuck? Like, so I called. I actually just asked her. I was like, "How did this happen?" And she was like, "Well, when something becomes delinquent past 1 year, they
They
usually
sell it.
they write it off and the government subsidizes it. So it was like,
Well,
and I said
normally
like, and
they
I
write
asked
it
her,
off by selling it at a low cost to a
oh,
collection
they
agency.
do that too. They do that too. They also get the subsidy. But I asked her, I said, so like, how long has this been? How long has this actually been covered? And she was like, well, look, you took your student loan out in 2000 or 2002, sorry. And she was like, pretty much that first year that you didn't make a payment, the whole thing got covered. Like, really? That's crazy. And she's like, yeah, you still. I'm like, so who am I paying to? And she's like, well, you're basically paying the interest and you're paying the bank back. It allows for them to get bigger loans. She's like, that's also why we're so cool with it. Because I asked her, I'm like, well, when do I need to pay it back? And she's like, honestly, right now, you don't have to worry about it till September. And I'm like, oh. I said that's and I remind her. I said, wait, that's how I forgot about it. You guys let me like defer it for like a
Yeah.
year or two, and then I just completely forgot about it. She's like, yeah, with these, it doesn't really matter because the government already pays it most of it off anyway. So think about it that way before you think about like, oh, they're just getting bailed out. Like they've already been bailed out, most likely.
Oh, and I totally agree in that way. I mean, it's obviously if the system has allowed them to, borrow this much money and still, live as absolutely disgusting as they do, and they have three girls, by the way.
I don't think
It's
the
it's
system.
it's kind of funny how that, has been extended and at the expense of taxpayers. It has to be the expense of taxpayers in the end.
I don't think the system though was like you need to be a filthy individual. In fact, you know what
Yeah,
though? Here's what you should do. If you want real retribution, you should call the state on. You should call the state on them and be like, they live in squalor and they have kids. Yeah, that's how you would get them.
so I could have taken pictures that you would literally go, do they ever repeat wear one garment before they buy another one and then throw it on the stank pile?
This
The
is
most waste. I would open their fridge, and I know what it takes to feed 3 kids. I would open their fridge, and there would be, I know what food costs. There would be a full size refrigerator full of repeated bags of salad. And by the way, she's very overweight. He's not. And there were basically, you're talking about a fully loaded fridge with all these health foods that she would buy, thousands of dollars worth of expensive food, literally rotting because she would only eat the fast food stuff and blah, blah, blah. But she was always on a diet.
she's like, yeah,
And
yeah, one of
I,
those.
I, I have never seen a fridge like that in anyone else's house in my life, just loaded with rotting money. And it wasn't going to be eaten, and it was like, oh my God. I mean, a big fridge, and that was just one thing on the entire pile. They were just the most wasteful people. They have literally abandoned vehicles in California that somebody was gracious enough to give them. My grandfather gave them a van. They drove tripping acid to California and just left the van there.
Wait,
They didn't
okay.
even
So for
sell
one,
it to somebody for $200. They abandoned it, and it was running.
as much as I would love to keep going on the story of your family, I do think we need to move on. I am curious though, like they they took acid and then drove to California
Oh, my cousin wrecked a vehicle in the middle of Wichita, totaled it, and they ran away from the scene and never got busted for it.
because they were. I'm just curious if like this was a thing. They're like, hey, we're gonna trip on acid and then like go on a trip.
They
I'll be honest, because that sounds
they were
actually kind of fun.
Well, it does, and it's just I'm just showing you how irresponsible it is. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where neither of them really had much parenting, and so they basically partied through high school and college, and then became parents, of course, real bop bop bop, and were still irresponsible children with their finances, their attitude, and their money. And they're just one of those people. And of course, she's real because she's a social worker, and so is he. He works for, I think, the prison system, and he's a heavy dope smoker, which is just fine with me, but I don't know how he's passing those tests. And then she works for which is funny because she works for some Christian university right now, some Baptist thing. So it's like, the long story short is, it's just, I have seen people abuse the system way above and beyond just somebody with just welfare and keeps having kids and gets a bigger check every time. That's reinforcement too. But just like you were saying, these things have already been paid. They've already
Yeah,
written them off
it's already
because
been.
it doesn't matter if it's welfare or student loans or they're black or they're white. They're still just, this just pouring money. Or a cop that beats up 5 people, gets sued and has to pay out $5 million in lawsuit. The cop doesn't even lose his pension or a nickel out of his change drawer in his cruiser. The taxpayers pay for that lawsuit. The same bullshit.
No, I agree. And like again, I don't want to. I don't want to mix words and say that like I don't think we should. No, I'm 100% behind the stimulus package. I actually don't think it goes far enough. I think we should be doing more. Um, there are certain things that I think should be more readily available to people, like you were saying, like the internet. I actually think that I don't know if it should be free, but I think it should be reduced for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think it should be free, but it should be government mandated to provide a certain speed, at least a minimum, to communities that at least have this, like 2,000 people or more population, and it should be very cheap.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, America, even though we are a very large nation in just land mass, we have the lowest speed of any first
Yes,
world
we
country
are big.
and the most expensive internet of any first world country.
Do you
Just to
know?
put that into perspective.
the best internet that we have in this country, one of the best, I shouldn't say the best, but one of the best is actually a town-owned internet, like socialist quote unquote internet. It's in
Yeah, at least
Georgia.
you buy into it like what do they call it? Not a commune, but a
Timeshare.
people do like the same thing with insurance.
Right, right. But yeah, that's actually the fastest internet because it's the people give such a damn and it's cheap. Like it's really cheap. Like well
Yeah,
free.
if we had like I don't know what much internet's so much faster than the old terminologies I know like T1, T2, T3, which were old designations for fiber optic speed. You could get a truncated piece of fiber, put in by the city and then split, for the people. And the more people that buy into it, the cheaper it gets for everybody, as long as it covers the cost. And that there's no way it would be anywhere near Cox Cable's $100 a month for their like
On the
50 meg
low end.
package.
Yes, on the low end. Like it's not uncommon to pay $200 to $300 your Cox bill come in. It's fucking ridiculous. I agree. Um, I do want to just touch on this real quick while we are talking about irresponsible children. Um, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mitch McConnell got into it and are still, I guess, battling back and forth. Um, and again, I don't want to spend too much time here because she's only stop one in my like blondes who should probably just shut up. Uh, but I think it's interesting because the and I know I'm hurting myself by the way because there's a lot of people who are they really respect her and this is my whole point is to ask you since this is more your side or the side you know more about.
I don't want anything to do with Mitch McConnell.
I'm surprised you don't feel the other way about her. I mean, I wouldn't want either one to be honest, but I think it's interesting because we are seeing the two sides of the party represented right now. And I think, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I have people who said, well, she could be our next president. There's no way in hell. I mean, she's got 20 to 30%, of the Republican vote. McConnell, on the other hand, he's around the same. The Republicans are so
Well,
split right now that I think
I'll
unless
tell
they
you what
come
most people
together,
think about McConnell. He's a flippin' traitor. The Republican Party is dead. And I mean dead as in a doornail. They exist at this point just hanging on with the name and the power that they've been elected to in the positions they are. But the Republican Party is dead. When it comes to even polling or general people who are Republicans in the past,
hmm
they have pretty much turned their backs on the entire Republican Party, just as they have turned their backs on the people. Even if it was just to make a statement of support in one way or another, the Republicans, the populist Republicans, would expected them to support certain things that they did not support. And I guarantee you, Mitch McConnell is the top of the list of the enemies of the people who would say be leaning right. They hate him. I mean, he is just as bad as Pelosi, and I don't know. It's hard to find support for any of those goons now. I mean,
is
I'm
this all
disgusted by them.
is this all just because of Trump?
Well, and it's not just because of Trump. It's because of how they. Uh, it's not even associated with directly with the election. Some of it has to do with the second impeachment, which is absolutely ridiculous in the first place. Just like the first time in 2016, they said, if he gets into office, we're going to impeach him. Right off the bat, they were going to do it before. They're going to waste our time with it again. And then, and at least Mitch McConnell and some of these other people had an opportunity to go, we're not playing this crap again. He didn't tell people to riot. He said, be there. He was asking people for support.
I don't want to get into that, but for one, I think
Well, I'm
way
just
too
saying,
much time gets bought in.
for
But
him to
to
have
be
not
clear,
just stood up and say, we're not going to play this impeachment game again. He's out of office. We're done.
he did.
Let's move on to other things. Let's move on to policy. there were multiple issues that they
No,
had
I
an
mean, no, like
opportunity just to stand up
McConnell did do that
for.
though. In
So
fact, I mean, impeachment's not going to pass because no Republican's going to vote on it.
right.
So like
When we're not
this,
talking about just them voting on it, it was the simple fact of a lot of. Trust me, if I could get more specific, it would take too much time. But as far as the right sees most 90% of the people who are in the GOP are not representatives that they thought they were. And so, whatever the next party is to come into, being the conservative party, the right leaning party, whatever, it will not be the Republicans. They might as well just call this the last hurrah of the Republicans.
no,
I
I mean,
mark my words.
you think that this is going to stay this way? Like you think they're going to
Yo,
continue this anger,
I stay this way as far as
this
people being angry
this
at the GOP.
gigantic divide? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and they are just as mad as a lot of the GOP as they are as some of the Democrats. I mean,
I
that's
gotta be
really how
honest.
angry. Well, huh?
I gotta be honest. As a leftist, that actually makes me incredibly happy because the Democrat Party can actually finally get their crap together. And I mean, for instance, Chuck Schumer has been a silent hero through a lot of this, and the only reason why is because he's afraid. And I'm not saying through the Trump shit. I'm actually talking about the stimulus and stuff like that. And like actually, he's leaning into populist ideology. The reason why though is because he's terrified of AOC um, primarying him. And like, so
Yeah, yeah,
if they don't have that fear of a unified Republican Party, maybe we on the left can actually kick out some like Pelosi. That would be great. Get Pelosi out, get
yeah.
like
Well,
Ro Khanna in.
and there's definitely it needs to be a wash for a lot of these people. I mean, there's going to be a lot of course, there's a lot of divide even with the Democrats and the Democrat populace. So,
But
I
okay,
mean,
so let me ask you a question though.
I don't know how quickly it's going to happen, but I do see it happening as far as the next, primaries and the next congressional election, within the next 2 years.
On the
So
other hand,
we'll
I mean,
see what happens.
you know that you know basically it just means that there's one party if it stays that way because
Well, and
divide and
it may be that way until some other resurgence,
yeah, yeah, years
takes,
down the
and I
road.
think there will be something to take its place, and it may take a couple election cycles. But I think the Republican
That's
Party
possible.
generally, the
That's
GOP, is
very
is
possible.
going to die off and be replaced by something in the next decade.
Here's my question though, because you seem passionately against Mitch McConnell, and I'm with you on that. But if your other option is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has said so much
No,
bull,
I hear you.
like
I hear you, but
what side?
it's kind of like if you've got representatives that are, in a lot of ways, uh, will not stand up for, at least, even if it's to their detriment of their length of time that they stay in power or in office. If they don't stand up for what the party and the populace wants them to, then they might as well be a Democrat in the first place. And you
Well,
know what I'm saying? It's
I
kind of like, if you're not going to do your job and take a fall and
right.
stand up for what these people want, I'm not talking necessarily for myself, but just generally how they feel, then
Right.
you're a traitor and you're no better than a Democrat. So it's better to have
An
an enemy
enemy
in the
than a
office
good
than a
no
traitor
enemy.
in
Right.
office.
I guess and that I guess it's just where I'm at though. Like there again, to propose the two ideas is like, and again, I know I'm not speaking to you directly, but it's like, would you rather have a Mitch McConnell, a traitor, if you will, and I agree with that on multiple levels, or would you rather have somebody who denied that some kids got shot in a school? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like that's a rock and a hard spot. 'Cause it's like, well,
No, it is.
I don't
It's
want to
definitely
vote
a
for
rock
the
and a hard
chick that
spot.
thought
But I'm
9/11
saying
was an
it's better
insect
to
joke.
have a known enemy opposition there that you can oppose, at least, you know, as, as far as
So
uh,
okay, so what you're saying is like neither one of them is the pull. Is like, nah, screw it. We're just not going to vote for any of them. Let the Democrats win.
well, I think that could happen that way. It really could. And I'm not saying that she's anywhere as demonized as the Mitch McConnell is, but I think people are just tired generally on the right of the failures of the GOP, and
Do you
you
think
know,
do you think some of that has to do with how much they built up the Trump victory? That Trump was just going to crush that everything that he's been doing, and let me placate this for is there some people who are also looking back and saying, Trump didn't actually do that much? Because I mean, I had that hangover with Obama. Like, way back, I'll admit it. Like, I was a huge Obama fan, and then when I started to analyze what Obama was and what he did, then I started realizing, oh, I was lied to. This guy was garbage. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, just ask Crystal Ball about that. I mean, she's just as
there's a lot
open
of
about
us
that. I
there.
mean,
Yeah.
but we'll put it this way: even though Obama didn't face what Trump faced, and this, hear me out on this. He went in, got into office, and was immediately hit with a bullshit, you know, as far as enough evidence to even quantify the impeachment in the first place. And then, second of all, he was hit with a 2.5 year investigation of lying, colluded, basically the whole, Russia thing that was a complete lie, and on top of that, having to have only wavering support by the GOP. I mean, he didn't have that much support. He was fighting for a lot of things. There were a lot of things, of course, that you're going to object to when it comes to of course, he was into the big money and all that kind of stuff. But there were some very positive, as far as policy plans that were, even the same stuff that Clinton and Obama were saying before. Not that those are great,
I
but if
was
you want to
gonna
talk about
say
border
I'm
security and things like
I'm
that,
against
these were
those as well.
Democrat policies, right? Just a few years back. He didn't have the support that he should have had. They didn't support him, and they also didn't go after the exposed corruption and lies, whether it be the CIA or the FBI. After the Russia thing was exposed, there should have been people, these rich bastards, in jail for this. I mean, these things that they did to stall out and get the public's eye off of policy, whether it be Democrat or Republican policy, they made no headway because they kept the public focused on bullshit for
Okay,
that many years. And
let me come back to
right?
that real quick with just this, and this is why I won't give Trump that benefit. I understand where you one would potentially. Here's where I don't though. For one, impeachment wasn't a threat until 2018. Everyone forgets he had a supermajority for the first 2 years, just like Obama did. And what he
No,
did,
I'm not saying it was an actual threat, but before he was
hold on.
elected,
No, but what I'm saying
there
is
were
that's
multiple
no.
high-level Democrats saying we are going to
Right.
impeach him
Of
the
course.
day he walks into office.
Look, and you know that was. Let me say this again. He had a supermajority for 2 years. It's not an excuse to not get shit done. Besides passing tax cuts for the rich, like that's just not an excuse. I'm sorry.
No,
And like, let me
I
say this
agree,
too.
but
Those
then
high
you know why
level.
that is
Hold
because
on.
the only thing
I'm
that
not
a lot
done.
of things that he could get passed were things that the other GOP big business deep insiders were going to pass.
I'm not done. Hold
I
on.
mean, that's what I'm.
The whole reason, by the way, that they said that the high level Democrats, you have to actually see the other side of it. And again, I don't agree with either side on this, but it was because Mitch McConnell had stood up and said Obama is not going to get anything past us. And if you want to give Trump the out, you have to actually then give Obama the out because
No. I'm saying
filibuster
I
after
understand
obstruction.
you're balancing the supermajority he had,
No,
which
no, no.
should have given
I'm not
him.
talking about that. I'm talking about the obstruction. That I mean, the Republicans became known as the obstructionist under Obama. They
No,
would just
yes.
filibuster. They wouldn't get anything done. But I don't give Obama the credit to say, oh, well, he couldn't get anything done because no, that's not an excuse to me. Like, let me go football coach to you. You hit a wall, then you plow through it. I don't want no goddamn
Right.
excuse,
No.
and
And
that's
I'm
my
not
take with
not
both of them.
faulting him for that. And what I'm saying is that it's above and beyond this. If he had a supermajority, I agree. But the problem is his supermajority didn't play with him like on that side as united as the Democrats are. I mean, seriously,
No,
he
no,
had wishy-washy. He did.
the
I mean,
Democrats are
as far as
super.
policy wise, they wouldn't support and sign things that he wanted to get signed unless it basically, their lobbyists and didn't support them in their big business. Now, I'm not saying there's a bunch of hidden things. And this is all the same money, people, between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Let me throw this
But
out,
what I'm saying,
and this would be the only excuse that I would give Trump, and it's only because you know me, like I'm one of the boring political people. I don't like the big like RussiaGate bullshit, whatever. I like legislation. Oh, Trump never proposed clear legislation on anything that was positive in those first 2 years. He really didn't. I mean, he worked most of his effort went to the wall. That was it. And you know what? To speak to what you're saying, you're right about that because 2017, late 2017, he proposed. This was his big like, um, it was a fiscal proposal, and he wanted to allocate all this money to the wall. What's his name? Paul Ryan. He told Trump, look, we'll get that after the midterms. Let's not worry about that. Let's get this and that done. Other like little things, to help hedge funds, Wall Street, that kind of bullshit. Of course, more money for the military, blah blah blah. But he said, let's sit on our laurels. Let's not do the wall because we'll get it after the midterms. And lo and behold, that would have been Trump's only opportunity to get anything passed because the
right,
midterms
exactly,
didn't
because the
go that
midterms
way.
didn't work out like they
Yeah,
expected them to.
but let's not conflate what Trump was actually working on for those 2 years, and it was the wall.
Right, and
It
I'm
wasn't.
not. That's not where the excuse lies. My opinion of what was one of the biggest failings of the Republicans to actually support him was, I mean, this may sound, you know, it's in the larger scheme of things. You may say, well, how does that help people? Well, all the people, including Republicans and the Democrats, that were involved in the scandal of the Russia scandal, Hillary Clinton, the DNC, the CIA, the FBI. These people were openly colluding. They were trying to basically delegitimize a duly elected president by lies and corruption, and they were not punished for it. That's the biggest problem I have with the entire thing, and that's why they're both guilty on both sides. The RNC didn't push, or the GOP didn't push to have these. There were things, there were hearings and stuff. Nothing came about it, and there should have been a roundup of these people who were openly colluding and lying, and they were basically traitors. If something like that had happened to Obama, it would have been the biggest story about, like all of these racists making up. Can you imagine if they'd have done that to Obama? I mean, they could have literally demonized correctly anyone involved in trying to collude to remove him as a duly elected president. They would probably say it's because he's black, but it would still be valid that they were doing it all on lies. And people's outcry for hang them, Joe, hang all these people, it would have been valid, and they should have cleaned house on the FBI, the CIA, all these people. Hillary Clinton should be in prison for her direct involvement. She destroyed all her personal illegal email servers. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious, and there was no reconciliation, and no one paid for this. And it was
Yeah,
such, and even just people's time, 2.5 years of lies and corruption to do that, just to demonize him, whether he was going to get anything done or not, took away from the discussion, from the political discourse, and from the law and order, and from these rich millionaire and billionaires who should answer for their crimes.
so okay, I agree with you, but then on the other hand, and you have to play this because it's the way it is. Um, you also would then have to say, like you said, like you brought up the point, just for the time alone, the time wasted. I would hate to bring up the Benghazi hearings, started in 2012, went until 2015, and it was daily they brought it, and there was nothing to it. There really was nothing, and that was the Republican.
Well,
So I mean, you go
that's
after,
right, and that was
and
a
there was,
worthless
and
distraction.
by the
I
way,
mean, Hillary Clinton definitely
there was a
was
lot of.
involved in inciting that. I mean, there's no doubt she lied about that. I think she lied about a lot of stuff.
What do you mean?
But
What are you confused by with that?
well, I mean, directly with military action that she had involvement with.
I
There's
mean, she was a
there's
Secretary
quite
of
a bit of
Defense. Like, I'm saying, what do you think she did wrong in that position?
well, she was the one that, if I can remember correctly, so when the embassy was bombed, right?
No, it was attacked. It wasn't bombed.
It was
Like,
attacked. Right, right. It was,
yeah.
well, they had some RPGs. So I mean, when they attacked the embassy, and just about everyone was killed. Right, there were only a few people that survived that.
No, there was
It
there
was
was four
associated.
there was four deaths.
There was 4 deaths. Okay, so I don't remember how many people were in the embassy at that time because they had partially evacuated, or they had just like crawled back in a room or whatever. I don't know. So what it had to do with was she lied about. Um, uh, Now put on the spot for it. She lied about the motive behind the attack. What was it? It was like there was some preacher in America at
So
the time that like
okay,
burned
hold
a
on.
Koran.
I'm gonna save you.
And
I'm gonna save you here, because I actually bring it up only because I actually think Hillary should be in prison, but again, not for this. Um, so what the whole thing was actually about her response time, and
right,
she
right.
held off way too long, and that was the whole thing. Again, 4 soldiers died. It sucks. It's too bad.
But there was
Um,
there was an aftermath on that, which instead of blaming her lack of action and the real intelligence, she blamed the deaths on some idiot who was just practicing freedom of speech in America and burning a Koran. She blamed that person, and it was like, no,
well,
no, no, this was your fault.
she actually blamed her own people. She said that the communication,
Oh,
you
I'm
know,
sure she did that
there was
too.
an issue with
I mean,
communication. It didn't go through, and
but
blah blah
honestly,
blah.
the Benghazi thing is totally small when it comes even getting close to the things that she participated in Syria. And I mean, there's
100%.
there's a
But that's
lot. Like
again,
you
that's
said,
not
she
what we're
should be in
talking
prison.
about. But Benghazi,
But
the
those
reason
things
why I'm
to
bringing
me
up,
pale in comparison by the completed huge effort and all of this crap, that involves all of these agencies and all of these people, whether it be Peter Strzok or the 2 FBI agents that were, I mean, these people were about as impartial as water and oil. They were absolutely going after him, and
but like, okay, hold on.
it
But
was
there again, we have people in the military who were complicit in lying about the situation that happened in Benghazi as well. What I'm saying, like, both of the reason why I bring up both of those is because they were a huge waste. They were the media, I think, on the outsets of it, they knew it, but you can't blame the media for not covering it. I mean, because we're the dummies that watched it and bought into it. And hell,
right.
they're all companies. They just
And in
want
my
money.
opinion, Benghazi, by comparison, is almost like a distraction technique to what the real shit is going on. But the Russia whole thing,
Well, no,
to me,
Benghazi,
was another.
Benghazi only became
What?
Benghazi because of the Republicans. Don't forget that. That's the only
No,
reason.
I'm not. I'm
It was
totally not. I'm
total
saying
brought
that,
on by them.
I'm not talking about sides when it comes to this, because there's a lot of those people that should be in prison for some of the same things.
I
So
think no,
I'm
and
just
I guess
saying,
all I'm saying, like, totally though, just to wrap it up though, is like, and I think it's probably the easiest to come down with this and to ask this question. And again, impartially, what did Trump do? What did he propose in legislation, not just rhetoric, legislation that would have been populist I'm not talking about helping
Uh,
people individual. I'm not talking about. Yeah, I'm just saying populist, which was his ultimate.
yeah, I would have to just stand on rhetoric for that, and he said,
Right.
she said stuff.
That's my
Uh,
problem.
the
That's my
list.
problem with
But
Trump.
I'm not disagreeing with you there either. I just want these criminals put where they should be, and that includes. This is a huge thing. That's the thing. These things have been going on, but only recently. Even with the bailouts and the CEOs that made billions of dollars
Occupy
from
Wall Street.
taxpayer
Yeah.
money.
No,
I
I'm
mean, this,
with you.
like I said, this goes everywhere. But just the fact that this was so exposed, some of these career politicians and these groups as actively doing this, not just to waste our time, but we'll actively collude and lie with impunity. And then it was really a big picture, showed everyone that this game is not only rigged and that's why when you say we need these good politicians to go in there and, I'm all for everything you said, but the problem is that's the machine that they're fighting against.
Right.
And I
No,
think that that's
100%.
that's
But
a
I think
grinding machine that will spit anyone out, regardless if they have 100% support. Even if they do and they're spit out and ruined and they're demonized, everything else, even if the people riot and burn down everything, and I mean everyone riot, it wouldn't change it because you're only burning down your own neighborhoods and your own businesses. And now they've got, what, 30,000 troops surrounding DC?
right.
What the fuck is going on with that? It's kind of like, is it
Here's
to keep people out or to keep people in? We don't know.
I mean
Biden's not even taken Air Force One yet. He's taking private crap.
the thing I think what you have to, remember too, and it's something, because these people that you want, and it's probably a gigantic laundry list of people that you think should face criminal justice in some form, and I agree with you in a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
them. I agree with a lot of them. It never will happen, and it hurts.
No.
Like I had this conversation with Monica, who's a liberal that we know, and she was like, "I really think Donald Trump should be impeached for January 6th." And the thing is like, she's probably right. Honestly, if we're gonna impeach Clinton for lying about a BJ, we probably should, especially when you hear the people who actually did riot and did attack the Capitol. They said they were there because Trump told them to. Like it's coming out of their words. But as I told her, I said it will never pass. It won't happen. So it's a waste of
Well,
time.
and that would be just simply because of semantics. He didn't tell those people to riot. He said to be there to support me and all this kind of stuff. And those were the fringe of the fringe out there going. Those are the QAnon people, honestly, that were there that
That's
get secret
that's
messages
that's
from
30
somebody.
that's 30% of that party. That's a huge number.
30% of that party may have believed in it, but not 30% of the party was there to do that. It was like a couple hundred people.
No, but 30% of the party are capable of that and believe in that and support Marjorie Taylor. But my point is, like what I made to her, is you're probably right. He probably should, but it won't happen. And it's a waste of time. And it's the same thing like what you're talking about. Yeah, these people probably should, but it's not going to happen. So it's a waste of time to worry about it.
Oh,
And
but yeah, but doesn't that just squash your hopes for
it
anything good
hurts.
happening when you know these
It
people
hurts.
dance around with impunity? They're like cops shooting people in the back everywhere they can, and they say, "Well, I feared for my life, so I had to start executing people around me." And then they do it with impunity.
It hurts. It does. Again, I think the only
How can you
lesson.
trust a system that does that, whether it be law enforcement or politicians, when they repeatedly do it in your face? It's just like, could you at least do it on my cracker? Because at least I know what you're doing to me at that point. No, 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 they're shooting it everywhere, and you can't do a thing about it. It's hard to trust a system like that,
It is,
and
and I
and
think
even
that's
want to
where
participate.
I go to the fact that it's not in this you know 5-minute rice society in this fast food civilization. This is a long fight, and it is actually getting better, but it's long and slow, and we got to grind out politicians and people that we support. Some of us, maybe who aren't, some people maybe listening to this should look into getting into politics. stay principled.
Well,
Do
all I
all
can
that
say is if
stuff.
you or I
And I'm
can
not.
come to a consensus on the fact that, this is going to take a lot of time and it's going to take more people, it's going to take people who are seriously, invested in not only the knowledge it takes to understand and collate all these things into an action plan, but you're asking people to do that from the next generation. It won't be you or me.
No,
It'll be the
no.
next
Hmm.
people. And do you or I have faith in the next generation of people as scatterbrained and small? My ADD doesn't even touch how scatterbrained these kids are, how touchy and how feelings they are.
Oh, these kids
They
kick our ass. You don't even know. These kids.
that's just as crushing as that, because it's like, well, let's pull the next soldiers in there. They're even better trained than we were. No, it's the reverse.
No, I disagree. I disagree. Honestly, our generation is losers compared to the kids behind us. And it's the
I don't
same.
know.
It's the same way. Like, look, your parents said the same thing about our generation. Ah, bunch of pot smoking hippies. They're losers and whatever else. They're all worried about sex and blah blah blah. You remember? You lived through it. That's why number one, I refuse to go with that same old ass boomer talk by saying, "Oh, because we know how much ass we kicked. We made an Elon Musk. We made, some of the biggest movements. We made the goddamn cell phone. We made it what it is today. When we got it, it was like this candy cane bullshit. We took it and we said, no, this is what we're gonna. We revolutionized the 20th century.
Yeah, well, it was us, but we were under the slave whip of Steve Jobs.
Point is
I'm
that
just saying, we
that
did it, not Jobs.
that next
Jobs just
generation,
sparked orders.
the next generation is coming up behind us, and they're smarter, and they're faster, and they're stronger, and we don't want to admit it because we don't want to admit that we're out of date, but we are.
Well, they may be faster and stronger based on their age, but according to just about every psychological study that has gone through in the past 10 years, we're getting dumber. So I would say that
No,
that's
that's
very
bunk.
questionable.
That's complete bunk. You can't measure intelligence based on a decade. That's complete bunk. Whatever that is, that's complete garbage. I would never believe that.
I
And
think
this is
more
somebody,
of it is
by the
how
way,
we process
this is
information
this is
has
somebody
changed dramatically in the
this is
past 20
somebody who
years.
has
And
a
so people aren't given one subject or one book to read and then process the information, and then give it back. We're bombarded with the mainstream media and a glut of crazy stuff, YouTube and everything else, and reduced actual social interaction and discourse. You're going to get people who make decisions based on feel good and not think good.
no, disagree. Completely disagree. I hear the exact same bullshit they said about us. And as somebody a who has a degree in psychology, I can tell you that trying to measure anyone's intelligence, by the way, is impossible. You can't do it. You definitely can't measure cognition based on decade, or you can even as far back as the Neanderthal. They haven't actually proved the cognition was that much different. So it, a lot of what you're hearing is boomer talk, honestly, and the way that the technology that we don't get that actually blurs lines for us and becomes overwhelming, that's what they were born with. That's what they're harnessed with. That's their power. I
But
mean,
it doesn't mean that this ape brain
and
that we were given
and
was ever intended
let's
to process information like that. You're asking for an evolutionary jump based on a technology forced down their throats. And biology doesn't work like that.
no, but it's a definitely environment. And let's look at this. Our generation is the most medicated generation of all time.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So,
that's for sure. So
I mean,
that causes a lot of problems in the womb by itself.
that causes a lot of problems in the brain. So when I hear
That's right.
people who
And
are
now those
like,
kids have that same drug running right through them, and they were born with it.
no, I
Oh,
can't.
are you
It's
kidding? Antidepressants are this generation's like what is it? Thalidomide or whatever.
Well, you can't
The
take
it
it.
was
You're not supposed to take your medication like that while you're pregnant. So if you are,
Well, you're not
You know,
supposed to
shit.
smoke or drink, but our parents did it.
Mine didn't. Mine didn't.
Well, they didn't tell you they did it,
And
but
by the
I can
way,
tell with that little eye tick you've got going.
and by the way, if your parents took medicine, like took medication and smoke and drink with you, then you were going to turn out to be a piece of garbage anyway because you had bad parents. So
Well,
you're already fucked.
my parents were just straight laced, so it doesn't matter.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people in general. Like if that was your upbringing, and yeah, you're already screwed. I'm just saying.
Well,
You're saying
I would
like,
like to think all that, but unfortunately, I think it may skip a generation before we get kids, back into the classroom and learning important things like STEM stuff and you know trying to find other ways of getting kids to learn other than standardized testing and getting schools to stop doing that and incentivizing standardized testing for their income. I mean, the American education system is shit.
can I
It
bring
is
this
shit
up?
by comparison.
Let me bring this up real quick, just so a lot of that's funding, and
No,
that's our generation right now working at stopping that funding. That's one, but number two, it's not really like that much anymore, dude. Like school, and by the way, school is a lot harder than when we were kids. It's a lot freaking
I don't
harder.
know, dude.
I know you
I don't.
don't
I,
know because
my
you don't have kids.
No,
You're
I
not going
disagree.
through it.
I did teach up for a few years as well, and the curriculum hasn't necessarily changed. I mean, I know what the school boards are voting on. I mean, it's state by state, even when it comes to history books or even science books. You got Texas that wishy-washy voting whether, it should be evolution or it should be, well, there's this other
That,
thing
that
called
okay,
intelligent design.
that's
That
irrelevant.
shit
That's not
still goes through.
that's not irrelevant though. Like I'm talking about Kansas curriculum because that's what I know. That's what I'm working my kid through right now,
Sure.
and it is more difficult than when I was his age. Like 8-year-olds didn't didn't have to do division and multiplication in their head, and like not when I was
Let's
8.
see, it was 8.
And
That
I'm
would have
younger than
been
you, so I haven't gotten
second grade. Is your kid a second grader?
no. He's a first grader.
He's a third
No, he's a second
third.
grader. He's second grader. Second grader.
He is second grade.
Yep.
I was doing division and multiplication in my head, my tables in that grade. Absolutely. I can even tell you what portable I was in my elementary school.
I don't know what that has to do with anything, but
I'm just saying when I was in second grade, I was doing long division and knew all my multiplication tables.
but not the multiplication too.
But
I'm saying like you have to, cause yeah, 8 times 8, blah blah blah. I'm talking. Um, Here's a good example. Um, this is what my kid was supposed to figure out today. It was 324 divided by 16.
yeah, well, that's just
What?
basic long division. I was doing that in second grade.
You do it now. Tell me what's the answer.
Uh, Give me. Can I get a piece of paper,
No, this is in
or
your
is it
head.
is a round number? Give me the number again, and I'll do it in my head.
Okay. There's 324 divided by 16.
324 divided by 16 would
I'm
be.
sorry. I'm sorry. It's 8. It's 18. I'm looking at it now. I wasn't even looking at it.
You didn't even give me a chance. I was just doing that. I was carrying my 1 over.
No, no. I was saying
Carrying
I
my
told
2
you
over, actually.
divided by 16. No, I was wrong. It was divided by 18.
Oh, divided by 18.
Yeah.
So the answer wasn't 18. It's 324 divided by 18.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that 324 instead of 320. So it'd be 34. So it's not going to give me 1 8.
I'm gonna go on the
Yeah.
record
So
and
that
say number one, this makes boring radio, but number two, I would never claim I could do that because I
is
can't.
the answer 18 as well?
Yes, it is.
Ah, oh, thank you very much.
Oh, good. A
Okay, I did not
44-year-old
use a
man
piece of
did.
paper, did not use a calculator. I'm standing here with a phone and a vape in my hand.
44-year-old
So there
man
you go.
did that in a minute. Great. He's 8.
Girl at Goodwill today, the girl that's probably 18 years old at Goodwill, couldn't give me correct change back from a $1.79 purchase. She gave me back 18 cents. How does that tell you how people are doing basic subtraction and shit?
I don't know. I don't base people who work at the Goodwill.
No, she's not. They don't have any people with disabilities working at that Goodwill.
Oh
She's a
no.
normal person. She's a cashier. She couldn't give me back 21 cents. She gave me back 18 cents.
But no, actually, I think the bigger conversation should be why the fuck did you know that and or care? Like, I wouldn't even like. I just take the change, don't even look at it. Like,
Well, because I don't want, because it's in every time I see a total and I hand a bill,
are you
I know what I'm getting
are you
back. Every
Scrooging it?
time I go through the drive-through McDonald's, I know exactly if they've overcharged me.
Are you Scrooge
It's
McDucking
it's
this whole thing? Like,
I'm
I
not Scrooge.
I
I
pay
don't.
no
These people
attention.
can't do math, and they constantly mess it up.
I
That's
pay
why at McDonald's they don't. They have a picture of the item. They don't ring it up individually. They don't know. They don't memorize what things cost. They actually have a picture. They go. It's a picture book. That's what it's a pop-up book for people working McDonald's.
that's
They have
actually
simplified it to the point where they don't have to do addition and subtraction.
that's actually not true. It's their POS
It is
system.
too.
No, it's not. It's their POS system. And the reason why they actually have it that way is for two reasons. One, the POS system actually makes it easier that way because that's my POS system.
Yes, it does make it easier.
But not for the worker, but it also makes it easier
Okay,
for record
I'll
keeping.
give you an example. Everybody on their phone has a McDonald's app, and a lot of times the app for discounts
Okay, just
will
don't
say,
listen to me who actually has the system. Fine. Like
No,
I was
our
saying, I
McDonald's does
explain. I
have
was
fully
explaining.
updated, it's
I
fully
was
renovated. They have
explaining.
kiosks and everything.
I was
So I go
explaining
up to
why it has
McDonald's
that
and
system.
I've got my phone, and I have the McDonald's app, and it has a buy one 10-piece, get another 10-piece for a quarter. So I drive up there and I say I need two 10 pieces, and so what does the girl do? She gives me a 20 piece. So I go up there and I have my phone and she scans the barcode and she says that doesn't work. I said that's because if you look here, it says I buy one 10 piece, get another 10 piece for a quarter, which is cheaper by a dollar and something than buying a 20 piece. Okay. So she says, no, it's more expensive. And I'm like, do you understand that it's about 40%, off of the other one and added into the other 10 pieces still cheaper than that? So then she has to try to calculate what 40% off is of 110 piece. She couldn't do it. The manager comes up. They're sitting there thinking. She even has a piece of paper, and she can't understand why I don't want the 20 piece. I want two 10 pieces and the coupon that I have brought to her, which should do it if she had rang it up correctly with her picture book. But because she has to go back, she couldn't calculate that it would be cheaper. She couldn't process the information that says one 10 piece and 40% off a secondary 10 piece was cheaper than a 20. I literally almost pulled out my fucking hair because she was too dumb to understand it. All you have to do is take 10% of it, move one decimal point, and times it times 4. And she could have added that to the first price and seen, oh, that's cheaper than $5.99. But no, she couldn't do it. Even the manager couldn't do it. They are so fucking dumb that you have to do these things for people. That's why I count pennies, and that's why I do that in my head. Because if you don't, these stupid people will shortchange you, not because they even intended to, it's because they don't know how. They can't even calculate when they've punched in the numbers wrong or done something wrong, and you say, I'm sorry, that's not the correct amount. And then you end up
Number one,
schooling them, and then they're just that
can we
more
go
angry
back?
that you were right.
Can we go back to the fact that you're a penny pincher? And I find this funny. But number
I'm
two,
not a penny pincher. I don't like to be ripped off.
you're going through all this hassle for a dollar or something. But beyond that though, let me explain it to you. No, those systems are locked out so they can't manipulate it. It has nothing to do with them. It's so that they can't charge like their friends $1.99 for a meal. Like
There,
that's why
it
they're
wasn't a friend's lockout. I have a digital scan coupon on
no,
my phone.
I'm
She
talking
took my
okay,
order
no,
incorrectly,
this is going
then
on
she
way too
scanned
long.
it without telling me. And once you scan it on the phone, it removes it from your coupon in the Microsoft deal. So they had to go back
Okay, you're
manually
going on
and
way
do it,
too
which
long over
required a
this.
manager override. And then the manager would have to calculate it and then
Are you
write it
not
on a
hearing
receipt and
me
stick
at
it in the
all? Like, am
drawer.
I just speaking into nothing? Is that what I'm?
What?
Am I just speaking into nothing? Like, as you've interrupted me like 3 times.
My speakerphone it drowns you out when
All
I'm
right,
talking. It
get a
doesn't come
better.
over.
Stop penny pinching on bones too. No, what I was saying is, I actually have the system. I know why it works that way. But you can continue to interrupt me and talk over me, and that's fine. But we're going on way too.
I just can't hear you.
But we're going on way too long, and I'm done. It's gone on. So I will just say this little bit of something because you totally steamrolled through the last two things we were going to talk about because you're worried
I
about
like chicken McNuggets.
you're worried about your $1.25 grandma. But I will say that most of those like picture systems are so that they can't fuck things up. That's why they have to call the manager. My system is set up that exact same way so that no one can rip me off. It's more about that than it is about the actual like knowing that. And by the way, your discounts are also locked. You can only do certain discounts. That's all that pop up. Um, Now my system is not like under lock and key like theirs is because I'm the main cash register jockey, but it's almost becoming universal. And it it is to the point like where you are like for instance I had a customer come in today and they won like 20 some percent off. I had I had to pull out the calculator because I want to make sure I got it right for one. But two, I actually have to enter like that's the only number I could enter. Like because everything is done. In fact, I'd actually show you in person to explain it. Either way though, we are like at 2 hours. So that's it for us today. Um, we may or may not find a game to stream again. I have no idea. We're like so back and forth behind any of them because they all seem to kind of suck right now. I know we were playing Sea of Thieves, but you can try to find something like at some point we'll get back on streaming. I I don't. Yeah, I think there's a
Oh, I mean, we may even just go back and see if I can get you to play. If we can go find like an older version of Street Fighter or something.
yeah, or there's a what is it? Streets of Rage 4?
Oh yeah, that's what we were. Yeah, I think we'd have a lot of fun playing that.
Yeah, that one we were definitely going to get into. We didn't actually end up streaming the Sea of Thieves because it would have
It
been
would have put
boring.
people to sleep.
Yes, I don't know how that game is popular at all. Um, but I'll just say this: within the next week, we'll be either on one of these again, or we'll be doing a thing on Twitch. Either way, um, and Friday, I've got another comedian from the Looney Bin, and I don't have my paper ready here. God damn it, who is it? The well rehearsed dude would know this, and I'd just be able to pull it off the top of my head. Oh, I got Craig Connent on Friday on the show. That's gonna be great. That's something I definitely want to talk about is the behind the scenes of some of the comedian interviews I've done. If you know comedians and you know some of the stuff, I'll just say this as maybe a teaser for our next show. I have been asked so many times to ask questions. Like they'll get a hold of me and be like, "Hey, make sure you ask me how my flight in was." Like, oh god damn it.
You're
Like,
doing lead-ins for these guys.
yes, bullshit like lazy ass lead-ins. Oh, make sure to ask me about my wife. Ah, great, you douche. Awesome. We're gonna do 80s and 90s jokes. And that's not all of them. That's not all of them, but yeah. Hopefully Craig Kennent won't be that way. And Brent Terhune, we're gonna have him on the next, what's the third? He'll be on in I think the fifth. Yeah, I think it'll be Saturday. So yeah. Anyway, look for us in multiple places doing multiple things. We'll see you later, guys. Take care.